Every ruler who dared claim it was doomed. The Koh-i-Noor diamond is no ordinary jewel. It has been called a fragment of the gods, a jewel of destiny, a shining curse. Across centuries, it has glittered in the crowns of emperors and conquerors, yet none who held it ever truly triumphed. It is a stone that seems to whisper of power but delivers only downfall. Its brilliance dazzles, but behind that beauty lies a history of betrayal, violence, and ruin. Legends say it was born in the heart of the earth with fire in its veins, too radiant for mortal hands. From the moment it was unearthed, it drew the gaze of kings who saw not just wealth but divine legitimacy in its light. To possess the Koh-i-Noor was to proclaim oneself chosen, favored by fate itself. Yet time after time, fate turned cruel. Dynasties collapsed, rulers were assassinated, empires fractured. The diamond gleamed on, untouched, as if mocking those who thought they could master it. What makes it different from other treasures stolen or conquered? Gold can be melted, jewels can be traded, but the Koh-i-Noor became something more, a talisman that promised eternal rule and punished hubris with merciless precision. Each ruler wore it as a badge of glory, only to find it was a mark of doom. The line between possession and possession by was blurred. One might own the diamond, but soon enough, the diamond seemed to own them. Its curse does not roar, it whispers. A king places it in his crown, and suddenly a brother sharpens his dagger. A general lays it before his court, and rebellion brews in the shadows. It does not kill directly, it tempts, it corrupts, it unravels destinies with quiet inevitability. A jewel, yes, but also an executioner dressed in light. Through the centuries, the Koh-i-Noor's journey has traced the map of ambition. From ancient kingdoms to Mughal palaces, from Persian conquerors to British imperialists, it has crossed blood-soaked battlefields and gilded courts alike. Always, its story ends the same: triumph turning into tragedy, power dissolving into ashes. And still it endures, untarnished, as if feeding on the chaos it leaves behind. How could a single stone shape the fate of entire empires? In the blistering heat of India's ancient plains, where kingdoms rose and fell like the tides of the monsoon, a single stone was torn from the earth, a diamond so large, so dazzling that men believed it could not be of this world. This was the Koh-i-Noor in its infancy, unearthed from the fabled mines of Golconda, where rivers of sweat and centuries of labor yielded stones that would dazzle empires. Among them, none shone brighter, none carried a darker whisper. The first stories of the diamond appear not in ledgers of trade, but in the breath of legend. Some claimed it was a shard of the sun itself, fallen to earth to test the greed of mankind. Others spoke of divine punishment, warning that whoever wore the stone would hold immense power but suffer ruin in equal measure. In Sanskrit texts and Persian tales alike, the stone is described less as a jewel than as a force, a fragment of celestial fire, too sacred, too dangerous to rest in mortal hands. Yet temptation is the oldest human weakness. Priests placed the gem upon temple idols, believing its radiance carried blessings from the gods. Pilgrims would kneel before it, awed by the otherworldly glow that seemed to pulse from within. But devotion quickly turned to desire. Kings eyed the jewel not as an offering to the divine, but as proof that the gods themselves had chosen them to rule. Possession became a test of destiny, and blood became its inevitable price. History begins to sharpen where myth once blurred. The Koh-i-Noor is believed to have passed through the hands of powerful Indian dynasties, each convinced that the diamond was more than treasure, it was sovereignty made solid. In battle, its gleam was said to blind enemies. In court, it symbolized the eternal favor of the heavens. And yet for each ruler who clasped it, betrayal, defeat, or violent death soon followed. The pattern was undeniable, whispered from court to marketplace. The jewel was no gift. It was a curse wrapped in brilliance. Still, desire overcame fear. Generation after generation gambled with fate, each convinced they alone could tame the stone's fire. The Koh-i-Noor became less a possession than an obsession, fueling rivalries, sparking wars, and leaving rivers of blood in its wake. Its light did not fade, but the men who fought to claim it did. It was worshipped as divine. It was coveted as a prize. and in both it was misunderstood, for the god's jewel was never meant to stay in one hand for long. The Mughal Empire was a world of silk and marble, of thrones that glittered like the heavens themselves. At its heart lay the peacock throne, encrusted with jewels beyond imagination, and upon it, gleaming like a captive sun, sat the Koh-i-Noor. For the emperors of Hindustan, it was more than ornament. It was proof that their rule had been ordained by destiny, a stone that conferred legitimacy as much as it displayed wealth. Yet the same brilliance that enthralled their courts carried an omen none could escape. Babur, the empire's founder, is said to have first taken the gem as a trophy of conquest. His successors cherished it, not merely for its beauty but for what it symbolized, the divine favor that made Mughal dominion seem eternal. Shah Jahan, who raised the Taj Mahal in memory of his beloved queen, placed the diamond within the peacock throne, elevating it as the centerpiece of imperial splendor. Under his reign, the Koh-i-Noor dazzled ambassadors and awed subjects. But behind the spectacle, ambition brewed. The Mughal court was no sanctuary. It was a crucible of betrayal. Aurangzeb, Shah Jahan's son, imprisoned his own father and seized the throne, the diamond glittering beside him as if to sanction his crime. Yet the gem did not protect him from the bitterness his tyranny inspired. His empire expanded outward but hollowed within, and after his death, the once mighty Mughal dominion splintered, each successor weaker, each grasping desperately at the jewel as if its light alone could hold a crumbling empire together. The Koh-i-Noor became a silent witness to parricide, fratricide, and the endless parade of blood that stained the Mughal succession. Emperors were blinded, poisoned, suffocated with silken cords, each convinced that with the diamond in their grasp they could defy fate. But the stone only seemed to quicken their undoing. Its presence magnified ambition, turned brother against brother, and lured assassins into shadowed corridors. It was both crown and curse, conferring glory and hastening ruin. By the early 18th century, the Mughal Empire was a shadow of its former self. The peacock throne still shone, but the empire's strength had rotted beneath the weight of its own intrigue. And then came the outsider who would carry the story into bloodier hands. In 1739, Nader Shah of Persia stormed Delhi, his army unleashing a massacre that left the city choking in smoke and silence. From the ravaged palace, he seized the peacock throne, pried the Koh-i-Noor from its setting, and carried it away as the ultimate prize of conquest. The diamond's brilliance had left the Mughal emperors in ruin. Now it would journey with a conqueror who believed himself invincible. But Nader Shah carried more than treasure in his triumph. When he bore the Koh-i-Noor from Delhi, he carried the curse as well. When Nader Shah carried the Koh-i-Noor from Delhi, he believed he had seized not just a diamond but the very heart of empire. In Persia, the gem blazed at his side, its fire a testament to his conquests. But triumph curdled into terror. His reign grew ever more brutal, his paranoia more consuming, until the once celebrated conqueror was cut down by his own guards in a bloody coup. The jewel, untouched by the violence, slipped from his dead hand into yet another. It passed through Persia's fracturing dynasties like a phantom, each new ruler clutching it as a safeguard, only to find betrayal waiting in his shadow. Shahs were poisoned by their courtiers, strangled in their sleep, toppled by their kin. The Koh-i-Noor seemed to trail misfortune with every exchange, gleaming serenely while men tore one another apart to possess it. Soon it left Persia altogether, carried across the rugged passes of Afghanistan, where tribal chiefs and warlords saw in its brilliance the promise of unshakable rule. Yet the pattern repeated, ambition followed by blood, possession followed by ruin. The diamond was a prize, but also a sentence. At last, the gem crossed into Punjab, into the hands of a ruler unlike those who had claimed it before. Maharaja Ranjit Singh, the Lion of Punjab, forged a kingdom of remarkable strength and unity in an age of chaos. To his subjects, the Koh-i-Noor was more than treasure. It was the embodiment of Sikh sovereignty, a jewel that reflected their pride and defiance in the face of empires that sought to contain them. Placed among his regalia, It became a symbol not of fleeting conquest, but of a vision, a kingdom destined to endure. But even the lion could not outlast the whisper of the curse. In 1839, Ranjit Singh died suddenly, and with him the stability of his empire. His successors were young, untested, and ensnared in the intrigues of ambitious courtiers. Within a few short years, the court dissolved into bitter rivalries, assassinations, and betrayals. The diamond remained, untarnished, a silent witness as the kingdom Ranjit Singh had built fractured under the weight of its own uncertainty. To the Sikh people, the Koh-i-Noor was sacred, a reminder of their strength. To the vultures circling Punjab, the British East India Company, it was a beacon of opportunity. As the empire weakened, foreign eyes fixed upon the diamond, seeing in it both wealth and a trophy that would announce Britain's supremacy in the East. The lion's legacy collapsed in the hands of his heirs. Princes were manipulated, regents murdered, and the kingdom slowly strangled by British encroachment. The diamond, once a symbol of resistance, would soon be paraded as spoils of conquest. Was it conquest, or the curse, that delivered Punjab into British hands? The fall of Punjab was written not only in treaties and battles, but in betrayal. In 1849, after 2 wars that bled the Sikh kingdom dry, the British East India Company annexed the land Ranjit Singh had once ruled. The spoils of victory were tallied with cold precision: territories, revenues, and above all, the diamond. The Koh-i-Noor was no longer the pride of a people. It became indemnity, seized under the guise of legality. Company officials drafted papers that called it a gift from the boy king Deadliest Singh, a child stripped of power, his hand guided by those who dictated his fate. The ink on the treaty disguised the theft, but the people of Punjab knew the truth. The jewel had been stolen. In London, the arrival of the Koh-i-Noor was heralded as a triumph of empire. Newspapers spoke of it with awe, framing it as proof that Britain now held dominion not only over India, but over its myths, its treasures, even its destiny. Queen Victoria received the gem as though it were tribute, though behind the polite ceremonies there lingered unease. Whispers circulated that the stone carried with it a curse, that every ruler who had worn it had been undone. Yet for a nation drunk on imperial pride, superstition was an inconvenience easily brushed aside. The diamond was displayed at the Great Exhibition of 1851, where thousands of visitors pressed forward to glimpse it under glass. But the reactions were mixed. Some marveled at its size, its ancient history, its aura of conquest. Others muttered disappointment. The stone, uncut and poorly proportioned, seemed dull to the untrained eye. Critics mocked the empire's prize, and in response, it was recut in London at enormous expense, trimmed of nearly half its weight to produce the brilliant oval shape it bears today. What the world saw afterward was dazzling, but those who believed in curses noted grimly that the act of cutting seemed to mirror the mutilations of empire, glory purchased at irreversible loss. Soon after, misfortune crept into the lives of those closest to the diamond. Deadliest Singh, the boy who had been forced to surrender it, lived a tragic life in exile. An adopted prince of England, stripped of homeland and heritage, alienated from both worlds. Within the royal family itself, accidents, illnesses, and early deaths cast shadows that the public sometimes linked to the ill-fated gem. Though Queen Victoria wore the Koh-i-Noor mounted in a brooch and later in her crown, it was noted, quietly, superstitiously, that the diamond was never placed upon the head of her male successors. Victoria's sons and grandsons faced turbulent reigns marked by scandal, abdication, and the collapse of the very empire that had once flaunted the jewel as its prize. The British monarchy endured, but the sun that was said never to set on its dominions eventually sank. Through it all, the Koh-i-Noor remained, locked within the regalia of the crown jewels, its brilliance unchanged even as the empire around it crumbled. The irony is stark. The conquerors who seized the diamond to prove their invincibility found themselves dogged by the same unease that had haunted its former owners. The whispers grew louder with every royal misfortune. Perhaps the curse of the Koh-i-Noor had not been broken, merely transplanted. Even today, the Koh-i-Noor has never been worn by a male British monarch, only queens, as if the crown itself fears its curse. When the British Empire began to wither, the Koh-i-Noor endured, a silent reminder of conquests that could no longer be justified. As India marched toward independence in 1947, the diamond became more than a jewel, it was a scar. For centuries, it had passed through the hands of conquerors. Now it stood locked away in the crown jewels, a relic of subjugation, untouchable yet omnipresent in the memory of those who had lost it. As independence was declared and partition tore the subcontinent apart, voices rose demanding the diamond's return. For India, it was a piece of stolen heritage, wrenched from a dying kingdom and flaunted as a symbol of colonial dominance. Pakistan, too, claimed it, arguing that as the successor to the Sikh kingdom that surrendered it, the stone was theirs by right. Afghanistan, remembering its time in Kabul, pressed its own claim. Yet Britain, clinging to the veneer of legality, dismissed them all. The stone remained in London, the silence of refusal deepening the wound of betrayal. Each demand only sharpened the diamond's double identity, treasure to some, curse to others. In the streets of Delhi and Lahore, protesters carried placards declaring the Koh-i-Noor a national birthright, stolen under duress. In London, officials responded with polite deflections, insisting the matter was closed. The jewel, encased in glass, spoke louder than any official statement. It was the enduring trophy of empire. And yet, as the decades passed, unease lingered within Britain's own royal circles. The whispers of misfortune clung to the Koh-i-Noor as stubbornly as ever. The deaths of monarchs, the decline of empire, the turbulence of modern history, all seemed to echo the same pattern. The curse was no longer confined to kings and emperors. Nations themselves now seemed entangled in its shadow. India, newly freed, faced the chaos of partition, millions displaced or killed. Pakistan, born of division, staggered under political strife. Afghanistan, claiming the diamond as part of its legacy, endured decades of invasion and civil war. Each nation that once held the Koh-i-Noor carried scars that refused to fade, as if the jewel's curse had expanded beyond rulers to touch entire peoples. Still, the diamond remains in British hands, untarnished, untouchable, yet more contested than ever. To some, its curse is superstition. To others, it is history itself, a reminder of what greed can unleash, how pride can destroy, and how conquest can hollow even the mightiest of empires. Perhaps the curse was never about the jewel, but about the greed it revealed in mankind. Today, the Koh-i-Noor rests under glass in the Tower of London, but it is far from silent. Across the world, voices rise in dispute, each laying claim to the stone as though the past might be healed by its return. India calls it a national treasure stolen at the twilight of empire. Pakistan argues it was surrendered by the Sikh kingdom, whose legacy it now inherits. Afghanistan insists the diamond belongs to Kabul, from which it was once taken. Even Iran, remembering Nader Shah's plunder of Delhi, stakes its claim. The jewel has many heirs, and none are willing to surrender their right to it. Britain, meanwhile, maintains its grip. Official statements dismiss the possibility of restitution, framing the matter as settled by law. Yet legality cannot erase memory, and the word gift, used to justify its possession, rings hollow against centuries of conquest. To return the Koh-i-Noor would be to admit that empire was not grandeur but theft. To keep it is to preserve an injustice still raw in the hearts of millions. But beyond law and politics, there is something deeper at stake. The Koh-i-Noor has outlasted kingdoms, toppled dynasties, and witnessed unimaginable bloodshed. Its brilliance still commands awe, yet its shadow is inescapable. Can such an object ever truly belong to a nation, or does it belong to history itself? Perhaps the more unsettling question is not who owns the diamond, but who is owned by it. Every ruler who held it fell. Every empire that claimed it cracked. Now nations quarrel over its possession. risking the repetition of the very greed and rivalry that gave rise to its curse. The Koh-i-Noor is no longer simply a jewel. It is a mirror, reflecting both the magnificence and the failures of humanity. Who then carries the curse, the stone or us? If the Koh-i-Noor is returned, will its curse finally be broken? The story of the Koh-i-Noor is not only the story of a diamond, it is the story of us. Kings fought, empires fell, blood was spilled, and still the jewel endures, gleaming as if untouched by time. Some call it cursed, others call it stolen, but in truth it is a mirror, reflecting the endless hunger of humanity to possess what cannot truly be owned. For centuries, the stone has passed from hand to hand, leaving ruin in its wake. Even today, nations still argue over it, as if claiming it might erase the scars of history. Yet perhaps the true curse of the Koh-i-Noor is not misfortune or death, but the obsession it awakens, the belief that power, pride, or legitimacy can be secured by holding a single glittering stone. So what do you believe? Is the Koh-i-Noor a jewel cursed by fate, or merely a reminder of human greed dressed in brilliance? Would you dare wear it, knowing the ruin it has brought to so many before? If this story gripped you, subscribe for more untold histories. Like this video to keep the conversation alive, and share your thoughts in the comments below.